I've been exposing the media's lies for a really long time now, and all these years later, I have to admit that I was naive about just how direct the connection was between Hollywood and the military-industrial complex, as well as how much control and how involved the Pentagon is with the content that you consume. I know that that's a really heavy tinfoil helmet statement, but you're going to understand what I mean in a couple of minutes here. I'm sure you've heard before that the Pentagon has involved themselves in a lot of modern action films, not just investing money in the film, but also lending equipment and personnel. But I've always compartmentalized that idea a little bit too much, not realizing that a lot of the biggest Hollywood studios are functionally fronts for the military-industrial complex, being used to sell American patriotism propaganda, as well as a career in the military directly to your youth, making sacrifice for your nation look glamorous, all while likening your war heroes to the superheroes of Marvel or the X-Wing pilots of Star Wars. This era of garbage entertainment is really just a secret recruiting tool. The way that the Pentagon describes their partnership policy with Hollywood to the public almost makes it sound logical. Kind of sounds harmless. If a large Hollywood production like an action film wants to include authentic military performances in their film, then the Pentagon is willing to lend the studio real military equipment like Humvees, tanks, jets, and even skilled military personnel, all for free, and in return, all the Pentagon asks is that they get final say on the script as well as the theatrical edit. Clearly to warp the public's perception around the military, as well as making a career in the military look glamorous. And in some movies, the military involvement is so obvious that it basically breaks the film. Like Man of Steel. I think the worst example is probably Captain Phillips. It's like two completely different movies. Once the military shows up, it just straight up turns into an advertisement. If you wonder how a movie like Oppenheimer can kind of just spin its tires in the mud and not really go anywhere with explaining the true nuances of all the evils behind the creation of the nuclear bomb, that's why. The military intentionally commissioned this film to make it look like they're the ones that handled all of the nasty business around it. They're the ones that punished all the correct people and cleaned up the mess. Funny that they didn't include the involvement of any Japanese people in the story to do that. An increasingly frustrating issue with Hollywood films now. If you notice that a film has an obtuse storyline or a really bland, boring character that's impossible to get into, that's not a lazy production mistake. That's the Pentagon's way of making the character as inoffensive as possible to make the character as accessible as possible to as wide an audience as possible, making it easier for your son or daughter to put themselves in that character's shoes. The Amazon Prime show The Boys is a perfect allegory for what I'm talking about here. In this universe, superheroes are real, and on top of fighting crime like a normal superhero, as well as participating in international conflicts like super soldiers, superheroes are also the celebrities of this universe, and they even play themselves in their own films, creating propaganda and manipulating perception about the conflicts that they participated in. And in this show, everyone in this world starts off believing that superheroes are just normal people that just happen to be born with superpowers. But it turns out that's not true at all. Throughout the story, the main character discovers that superheroes are actually chosen from birth from an evil organization and turned into super soldiers using a secret serum. Just like the celebrities of our world, they're engineered from childhood to be propagandizers. And just like the celebrities of our world, those talents they display that everyone tells them are a gift are actually a curse. And in the story, the main character is able to convince the world of this truth because another superhero breaks ranks and spreads this information with him. Still waiting on that. I would recommend this show, but don't watch Amazon Prime. That shit's garbage. The scariest part, though, is that in the real world, the Pentagon doesn't at all hide how involved they are with Hollywood films, or what it means to them to be able to sell their message directly to you. The military literally has panels at Comic-Con. In their first appearance, they wrote in their itinerary, "The armed forces of the United States have been featured in film and television over the last century." How does the real military support the entertainment industry? U.S. Armed Forces Lieutenant Colonel Blank from Avengers and Hawaii Five-0, U.S. Marine Corps Lieutenant Blank from Battle Los Angeles and Avatar, U.S. Navy Lieutenant Blank from Transformers and Iron Man 2, and U.S. Coast Guard Commander Blank from the Adjustment Bureau and Deadliest Catch offer an in-depth discussion and Q&A. And then it goes on to say this will be the first time that the Department of Defense will be able to participate in a Comic-Con panel. This is a great opportunity to reach out to the future comic book filmmakers. See, even in their own release, the Department of Defense admits that their soldiers double as actors who reenact global conflicts and portray themselves as the good guys. All of those films that I just listed and more were funded by the Department of Defense and used as advertisements for each of those individual armed forces. This is straight up Team America World Police level bullshit. America! Yeah, in case you were wondering, NASA too.
Apollo set a huge standard for what we were capable of, and now NASA is looking to make the next giant leap deeper into the solar system, putting people on Mars.
Going to Mars is not like Star Trek. It's not like go where no human has gone before. The scientists have to be there. We have to learn everything because we're planning to go to stay.
Mike, he was on the space station a bunch of times, twice, once as the commander, and he also flew on the final space shuttle flight, Endeavour.
First off, I'd like to say that this is the first time NASA's been to Comic-Con. We're all big fans like you guys are, and this is what's really neat about Comic-Con and NASA. It's a natural fit because we actually, there's a lot of fantasy and fiction and inspiration and all the good parts of humanity, using our minds to imagine a brilliant, different, awesome future, and that's what we do at NASA. We try to bring that home.
I'm a big fan of Velcro.
We had this imaginary space station in the movie 2001, and then we believed it, like we fell for it, and it's like, we can build one of those, and we did.
I have a document from the Office of the Assistant Secretary of Defense from 1977, where they were clearly in negotiations with a production here. On the first page here, they're rejecting the proposal to help in the production of the first Christopher Reeve Superman film, stating that the script was too implausible. So this isn't a new thing. Now, there's probably nothing on earth that I hate more than Christmas, because it's like the titular propaganda season. An old article here pointed out that the Pentagon spends millions of dollars every year invading Christmas films. Their worst offender is obviously Hallmark. Hallmark just creates this never-ending conveyor belt of films. Everybody's made fun of this. In fact, the Department of Defense has a long-standing relationship with Hallmark, producing films such as Operation Christmas Drop, which just so happens to make the Air Force look like they're just a bunch of sweethearts. And a leaked document recently revealed that the military absolutely loves using films and characters for the code names of their operations. In 2024 alone, they listed operations Avatar, Logan, and Point Break. I don't even want to know what the hell they were doing in the last one. Marvel has both direct and indirect connections to the Pentagon, the Department of Defense, DARPA, as well as a ton of defense contractors.
Our next speaker will be Dr. Alicia Jackson, co-founder and CTO of Drawbridge, a new medical technology company that combines the science of chemistry with the fundamentals of logistics. Previously, she worked at DARPA, the Pentagon Center for Disruptive Technology Incubation, where she launched and served as deputy director of the biotech office, and there oversaw projects such as the refinement of brain-machine interfaces.
Here we are at the home of Stark Industries, where superheroes are made.
I've been working my way up to making a video about transhumanism and the way that the media has been trying to push us into adopting things like computer chips in our brains, as well as genetic enhancements and physiological upgrades. All that ghost in the shell kind of stuff. Well, Marvel's been playing a huge role in pushing the idea of human modification to the public, literally describing it as humans getting their own superpowers.
Ever since I was little, I wanted to be Superwoman. Who of you think that you are superheroes? At least 1% of you are. Among us, there are those people who can summit Mount Everest without an oxygen tank, or people who have unbreakable bones, or who don't need to sleep. They only need 3 or 4 hours a night. And even those people who are immune to HIV. That's a superpower. There is now a company that will enable you to find out, are you a superhero? And what is your superpower for $29? But there's a challenge with this. You have to be born with this superpower. And that's not enough. I want to be able to engineer my superpower. I want to be able to sleep 4 hours a night. And up till only about 3 years ago, it was nearly impossible. Until we discovered CRISPR. Clustered, randomly interspersed, palindromic repeats, CRISPR. What CRISPR enables us to be able to do is to go into the genome very precisely in a targeted manner and delete, edit, add whatever we want to the genome. The tool like this in human hands doesn't enable us to just, for example, cure a genetic disease. But we're humans, we're creative. And when given a tool, we want to shape our world around us. And CRISPR enables us to do this.
Ultimately, our scientists today don't actually understand how to do this kind of genetic modification. Right now, they know how to print out DNA with whatever kind of protein sequences they want, but they haven't quite figured out how to actually program that DNA with specific qualities.
It's such a powerful tool that already we've begun to become concerned with. If we have this tool, how might we edit our own humanity?
The only example that they use in this presentation is a deleted gene.
And just as an example, a year ago, a group of researchers in China showed the ability to delete the myostatin gene and give rise to Hulk the dog.
The example that I used in a previous video about genetic modification was also a deleted gene. The liger grows so large because neither the mother or the father passed on the gene that tells the body when to stop growing. When someone has 6 fingers on their hand, it's not because they have an extra gene, it's because they're missing the gene that tells their hand when to stop developing fingers in the fetus. Today's scientists know that if you delete certain genes, then the body cannot regulate certain kinds of growth. That's it. And I gotta say, deleting genes is the stupidest way to improve something.
These are the same breed of dog, just the one on the left is missing a gene, and it becomes the Hulk.
Congratulations, you just cut that dog's lifetime in half. That dog's heart was never designed to support that much muscle mass. There's a reason why our body regulates the size of our organs. Our bodies have physical limits. Secretariat, the fastest horse ever, died really young. Turns out the reason it was so fast was because its heart was 4 times the size of a normal heart. That's also why it died young. On a superficial level, sure, we can say, great, we saw the fastest horse ever. But at the cost of its life. At the cost of its own experience here on the planet. When you play God, you curse something. You might be able to get really jacked with the right formula. You might get people to marvel at how strong you are, but you're gonna find out one day that your muscles can lift more than your body can handle. You'll start to lift something and your tendons will just snap. That happens to juicers all the time.
We do have correlation between what genetic code leads to what traits, but it's tenuous and it's developing over time. So we might want to give these traits to our children, but there's still some uncertainty. We don't understand the interactions.
You can't just genetically modify the body to have bigger muscles. You also have to modify the body to create stronger tendons, thicker bones, a more comprehensive cardiovascular system. You're just making it too complicated now. But Marvel seems bent on selling you their fantasy bullshit as if it's already established science.
Our ambit in general tonight is to talk about the science of the Marvel Universe.
I'm here on a mission tonight. I want to change your perspective. You have to rethink what you mean by here and now.
So the issue here is about consciousness, the nature of consciousness.
Our entire system in the last decade has shifted towards glorifying STEM field careers. Shows like Star Trek exist to create a sense of wonder and discovery in youth, hoping that one day they'll follow a career in organizations like NASA and help usher us into the future. And there is a beautiful version of that mentality. Most people going into those things embody that beautiful version of that mentality because they believe the propaganda. And I think that we all want to believe that our youth are being pushed into STEM fields for the same reasons that Gene Roddenberry made the future look prosperous. But the sad truth is that our system does not properly reward people for grinding to prove themselves and improving humanity. I think that the most genuinely charitable people, the people who actually improve life for everyone on the planet, are taken for granted more than they are celebrated. And look around you. Day by day, everything's getting slowly replaced by AI robots. Teachers are the next thing on the chopping block to be replaced in the classroom. Our youth are being trained to serve that system, to serve that society. We're one generation away from having an entire society of people who build and maintain robots. During the Winter Soldier promotion, Marvel spearheaded a campaign to try to convince a bunch of girls to join STEM. And they even made working for them sound like a glamorous Hollywood experience. It's a job.
What do?
We fight.
I'm Emily Van Camp, and I'm Elizabeth Olsen. Do you want to see how the movie got made? Wait, Emily. We can't let them inside because they're not part of the Marvel team. Right. Well, let's get out of here and tell them about an opportunity to earn their way inside.
In a perfect society, we would be pushing our children to join STEM to improve humanity, to improve human longevity, to improve technology, just make life better.
Elizabeth and I are here to tell you about an amazing opportunity for girls just like you to explore your inner potential to reform the future with positive world change through STEM, science, technology, engineering, and math.
There's a version of reality where we let AI take over and we live in a utopian wonderland.
Marvel, the National Academy of Sciences, Dolby Laboratories, Broadcom, and Synchrony Bank are challenging girls nationwide to develop innovative STEM-based projects. If you're between the ages of 15 and 18 in grades 10 through 12 and believe you have the potential of creating positive change in the world, you can submit an original project that can be as complicated or as simple as you wish.
But we all live in a capitalist society that would prefer to offer us solutions in exchange for profit. I mean, hell, think about it. This is the military pushing this idea. Yet they let their own homeless veterans rot on the side of the street. They don't give a fuck. The truth is that the Pentagon just wants technological superiority. Period. They only want medical superiority to use on their active soldiers who still have pep, vigor, and patriotism coursing through their veins. This technology is not going to be used on the old and frail who have already outlived their usefulness. This is the outside of the military's matrix.
In Captain America's Civil War, each hero is forced to take a stand and choose a side in their fight to reform the future. And although the team becomes divided, they remain united by the same goals. values: the commitment to safeguard humanity, protect the Earth at all costs, and make the world a better place for future generations. I'm really excited to meet these exceptional young women who have STEM backgrounds and who maybe also want to be part of more of a creative and science-based world, and Marvel's the perfect place for that.
You're seeing the outer edge of the military's machine. This is the direct propaganda department for the military-industrial complex.
Upon completion of the contest, 5 finalists will be selected and have the opportunity to come to California for the red carpet world premiere of Marvel's Captain America: Civil War. And one very talented and lucky girl will be awarded the grand prize, an internship at Marvel Studios!
And that's the true American spirit right there, isn't it? The real reflection of the American dream. Putting the youth to work for free. Tricking them into thinking that their efforts are going to have deep meaning, convincing them to give away their labor and their spirit in exchange for nothing. And all they had to do was fill their heads with a bunch of fake dreams about the future through the altruistic persona of Captain America, with the lie that somehow their hard work will pay off. So have you guys ever wondered why there was so much rhetoric in the media about keeping men's opinions away from the Captain Marvel film?
USC Annenberg's Inclusive Initiative released findings that 67% of the top critics reviewing the 100 highest grossing movies in 2017 were white males. Less than a quarter were white women, and less than 10% were unrepresented men. Only 2.5% of those top critics were women of color. Am I saying that I hate white dudes? No, I'm not. But what I am saying is that if you make a movie that is a love letter to women of color, there is an insanely low chance a woman of color will have the chance to see your movie and review your movie.
Well, Captain Marvel was designed to sell a career in the Air Force to girls. So that was all about creating a fake us versus them mentality around the film. They were trying to light a fire under girls' asses by creating a fake sense of competition and hoping that that would convince girls that they had to prove that they're tough enough to run with the boys. Like, that was actually a theme in the film itself.
You do know why they call it a cockpit, don't you?
They had the guy look right at the camera to say that. He was saying that to your daughter.
You do know why they call it.
He was trying to piss you off. And anytime somebody had a legitimate criticism about the film, the media would turn around and say that that critic is just a woman hater. Well, now you know why they did that. And that shit works. The film is literally about teaching girls that they have something to prove against men. All that anti-man stuff around the film, that was never about men. That was about creating a perception of unjust inferiority around women, trying to convince them to join the military. And of course, there seems to be no room for discussion about stuff like this. Instead, the media blasts stories about culture war related stuff instead. The culture war is one of the most obvious distractions to keep us from looking at the real issues. Brie Larson is not a monster for hating men and making a shitty movie. Brie Larson is a monster for trying to convince your daughter to become a drone pilot. We should hate Hollywood for trying to convince us to adopt self-destructive behaviors. We should hate Hollywood for trying to take our youth away from us, for trying to steal their innocence. We should be protecting our families from this corrupt, delusional propaganda that tries to convince us that we can all be heroes. But instead, we're the ones taking our children to the theaters to absorb these lies. I've praised the Wonder Woman film quite a few times in the past. Take a lot of that with a grain of salt, because it's one of these films too. Wonder Woman has a lot of keeping up with the boys in it, and hell, we love her for that. It's always been a theme in her stories. The thing is, if you take that formula and apply it directly to an actual military conflict that actually happened, and then you make the main characters rogue agents who are choosing to fight on the front lines of their own free will against orders? Well, the message you're telling to girls is that it's valid to pick up a gun and join the front lines of a war to prove yourself against a bunch of boys. And the thing is, I can like that film for what it is and what it's trying to do, but through the context of who it is that's making it and why they're doing it, it kind of leaves a sour taste in my mouth. I mean, Wonder Woman is about trying to get girls to join the Air Force too. It's Air Force propaganda too, both. And the thing is, some of these things are not even really wrong to teach to girls. I remember even praising some of these films for some of these aspects. But it's the why. Why are these films telling these things to our children? Why are these films featuring these themes? It's because they want your sons and daughters to sell their lives away in the name of patriotism. They want your children to die on some random battlefield somewhere believing that they're Captain America. They want your kids to think they're the Punisher. America has become absolutely deluded.